welcome back to my channel. Today I'm reviewing the new foundation from Natasha Denona. This is the Foundation X Plus. This actually is kind of an extension to the original Foundation X, so it's just a plus. And I was curious about this foundation. It actually launched last Friday on the Sephora website, and so many of you reached out to me and said, hey, will you review this foundation? I ordered this Friday morning and actually received it on Saturday afternoon, which was pretty awesome. So I've actually been able to wear this half the day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, and all day today is Tuesday. So I've worn this for 3.5 days. My original plan was to upload my video this morning, and I just did not feel like yesterday I had a full opinion on it yet. Like, I felt like I needed to wear it one more day before I uploaded my video. And as you guys know, I typically stick to my schedule where I upload pretty much every day at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm never into uploading reviews that I don't believe in, and I just felt like I don't really know how I feel about this, and how can I go on there in my final thoughts and tell them how I feel about it when I really don't know how I feel about it. So I went ahead and changed the plan, and now here we are. So a little bit about me, if you guys are new to my channel. I am almost 40. I'm turning 40 in May. I have hyperpigmentation. I suffer from adult acne, which is under control at the moment. I'm so happy for that. I think my biggest thing is my texture along here. I have hyperpigmentation, and I do have dry normal skin. Right now, I'm not as dry as I was during the winter. So right now, I'm definitely more on the normal side. So for those of you guys who are new to my channel, that is my skin type. I typically like a more radiant, glowing type foundation. If I wear a matte foundation, I like it to be more of a natural type matte versus really, really matte, where it's just really drying. I don't wear a lot of setting powders on my face because I really need my foundation to perform on its own. Typically, when I put a bunch of setting powders on my face, it looks heavy and cakey. It just doesn't look good. As I've aged, I used to wear powders all the time, but as I've aged, it's just something that I don't really wear that much. So I really need my foundations to perform on their own. So I'm really curious about this one because this one is supposed to be full coverage and basically designed for mature skin. So this foundation is an anti-aging powerhouse packed with antioxidants, vitamin C, and collagen, and elastin boosting ingredients to protect and perfect the look and feel of your skin. Available in 20 shades designed by professional makeup artist Natasha Denona. Pomegranate moisture complex containing gotu kola extracts hydrates and smooths the skin surface and restore overall skin's health. Packed with antioxidant ingredients to protect against environmental aggressors, naturally derived extracts instantly provide exceptional glide and blending for effortless application. It's supposed to be a luminous second skin finish that is lightweight and buildable for custom coverage. And it is supposed to be long wearing and water resistant, which makes it a great choice for humid climates. And it's a creamy soft texture that smooths and moisturizes the skin for optimal comfort. It retails for $45, and like I said, it comes in 20 different shades, and I believe you get 30 mils in here. So that's all the information about the foundation. Now, I chose the shade 70WN, which is described as a medium warm neutral undertone. So basically, it's a medium with a warm neutral undertone. Well, this was way too dark for me. And when I applied it on Saturday, I was actually getting ready to go to the Utah Jazz game with my husband. And it just did not look good. And it was because, you know, I do wear fake tan, but I typically do it about once a week. And I normally do it on Tuesday evening, and then I wash it off on Wednesday morning. I was kind of embarrassed like the entire time I was at the game because I was like, my face is so much darker. And even though I put a lot of concealer on to kind of highlight and like lighten up the face a little bit, it still didn't match, and it just didn't look the best. On Sunday, I decided to really build up the coverage, and so I put it on, and I'm like, okay, and I really did not have time. This weekend was crazy, you guys. It was crazy. I did not have time to film my application, especially like my first application, because Saturday my kids were going to prom. I needed to hurry and get ready so we could go to the Jazz game. Like, there was no way I could turn the camera on and go through the applying application and go through my first thoughts and all that stuff. So all of that was happening. Sunday I was super crazy busy still, and it just did not match my skin. But the problem was it also oxidizes. So not only was the shade really off and darker than I would have preferred, it was also oxidizing. So the more that I would put on, and if I tried to build up the coverage, it would get darker in those areas where I built up the coverage. It just did not match. Like it would be darker here and then normal here, or darker around here where I built the coverage up, and that would be lighter where I didn't. So when I applied it yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, this shade is so bad. And you could tell that it just didn't match. Now, through the camera, it didn't look near as bad as it did in real life. The only way for me to truly give this a really good review is I needed to match it to my skin the best that I could. And the only way I knew how to was to go ahead and reapply my fake tan for the week. So that's what I did last night, and today this foundation matches my skin much better. Still a little bit darker than I would like it to, but I actually like the shade so much better with the darker tan because it matches better. So I was able to build up the coverage today, and let me say this right off the bat, I would say this is a medium buildable coverage. It says that it claims to be full coverage, but I would not call this a full coverage foundation. I would say it's a medium. You can definitely build it to a full coverage, but it's not full coverage right off the bat. For those of you guys who are close to my shade, I will leave a full list of all of my favorite foundations and the shades that I wear in those foundations in the description box down below, just to make it easy for you guys that maybe wonder if you're close to my shade or what foundations I like. I leave all of that in the description box. And let me go through a few foundations that I feel like are a decent comparable foundation to this foundation. All of these foundations dry kind of like this one does. It has that dry wet feeling where you put it on and it almost instantly dries, but it's not like a powdery dry. It's like a very creamy, drying type feeling. The first thing I would say is the Infallible L'Oreal, this is the Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear. I would say this one. I would also say it's similar to the Lancome Tint Idole Ultra Wear Foundation, definitely similar to that one. The Forever Skin Glow is definitely similar to this Natasha Denona X Plus. Also, the Wonder Beauty Nude Illusion, this one is definitely similar to it. And the Becca Aqua Luminous Perfecting Foundation and the Guerlain Natural Perfection Foundation. So I would say if you guys are curious about the texture and the way that this foundation applies, the way that it sets on the skin, all the foundations that I just went through are pretty much kind of the same type of texture. It doesn't get cakey. They don't settle into my fine lines. They kind of glide over my fine lines, but some of these foundations don't look the best over my pores, and I would say that's probably the same with this foundation. So if you are somebody who has larger pores, you might want to apply some sort of powder over top of it, but that's all the information about the foundation. Let's head straight into the application portion of the video. I will come back and do a midday check-in, and then I'll come back later on this evening to give you guys all of my final thoughts on this foundation. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so let's get applying this foundation. I was not able to film like my first impressions applying it, which was kind of a bummer. Yesterday, I wasn't able to film. It was kind of a crazy day yesterday. I've had a crazy weekend, you guys. Crazy, crazy weekend. My grandma got put in the hospital. My kids had prom. And we had an issue with my kid's friend over the weekend. Like, it was crazy. Crazy weekend. I think there was an issue in transit with this because I had foundation down inside that pump and I can't get that out. Like, I've tried and I can't get it out. I would say my biggest issue so far with this foundation is the shade. The shades are off. There is something wonky with the shades because I pretty much order most of my foundations with medium with like warm neutral undertone. This one is just off. I'm gonna apply half of the face with a sponge and half the face with a brush. So just so you guys can see how it applies, it's such a thin formula that it feels like if you go in straight with a sponge, you like soak it up. So far I've noticed that the best way for me to apply this is applying it with a brush and kind of doing an even layer and then smoothing it out with a sponge just to kind of give that sponge type finish. I mean, you can see the shades are wonky. It's almost like it's too warm, like too orange warm. It's not that it's tan, it's just super orange. It's got a very orange base to it, as you can see. And it's kind of, I mean, I was kind of able to color correct it with some concealer, but it is exceptionally orange. So I'm just putting an even layer all over. I'm going to go in and smooth that out with a sponge. All right, so that's one layer with the sponge. And again, it is not full coverage. I would call this medium buildable is how I would describe this. But the shade is just so orange, and you know, I have to really, really work with this shade to try to make this blend. Now, if I had just put on my tan, I could probably really make this blend into my skin, but because I need to do that probably tomorrow, I didn't have time to do it over the weekend because the weekend was just a crazy weekend, you guys. Normally, I have a very quiet life, but this weekend was definitely the exception to my lifestyle, because typically we have a pretty quiet time around here, but not this weekend. You know, and I have her Face Glow and her Transform Matte, and I never had an issue with her shade. But the problem with this foundation too is not only is the shade wonky when you first apply it, but it oxidizes and gets darker and darker as you're applying it. When I first got my bottle, there's like a separating that goes on inside the bottle. So I recommend you got to give this a good shake. And I think this is a foundation that you probably need to give a good shake every single time you use it. I am going to try just a little bit to build up in this area where I have the most texture. And I'm going to do it very lightly. That's it for this application, and I will see you guys in my first check-in. Okay, so it is bright and early. It's around 7:30 this morning, and my eyes are kind of weak, but kind of not. I want to test this one more day, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to apply it one more time on camera. I did put on my fake tan last night because I felt like I needed to wear this foundation with a tan. I felt like in order for me to really apply this the way I need to build up the coverage and stuff, I felt like I needed to apply it with my tan and try to match my skin to the foundation. I'm going to put some of my Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base on. Okay, let's go in and start building up the coverage and really start blending that out. And it matches my skin so much better with the fake tan on, like so much better. This was about 3 pumps, and that was what I needed to apply in order to get this result. I do feel like this is probably a pretty good, decent medium coverage. So I'm going to come back later on this afternoon, and I am going to show you guys how this looks. But as you can see, I really built up the coverage, and even though you can still see my skin, it looks very natural, but I have a pretty decent coverage going on. So this is what it's looking like, and I do think it looks really natural. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and jump off of here, and I will see you guys in my first check-in. Okay, everyone, I am back for a midday check-in, and currently it is almost 2 o'clock. So I applied this right between 7 and 7:30 this morning. So let's just say I applied it at 7:30. So I've had it on for 6 hours, and I wanted to come on here and show you guys how this is looking. I don't feel like this foundation has changed much since I applied it early this morning. I wanted to go through some of the foundations that I have here in my collection that I feel are similar to this foundation as far as the way that it applies, the way that it blends out, and the way that it dries and sets down on the skin. I also wanted to show you swatches of some of these foundations so that you guys can see just how dark this foundation really is. So this foundation is right here. This is the Natasha Denona. It's right here in the middle. And again, that one is in the shade 70WN. So let's start from here and then we'll work our way down. This one right here is the Guerlain Natural Perfection Foundation in the shade 04N. So it is just a 04N neutral. This shade right here is the Becca Aqua Luminous Perfecting Foundation in the shade medium. So you can see what that one looks like. Again, this is the Natasha Denona Foundation X Plus. So this shade right here is probably the closest that I have to it. And it is the Forever Skin Glow Foundation from Dior. And it is in the shade 4N. And I haven't been able to wear this one much because it is a little bit too dark for me right now. So I would say that that is probably the closest shade match out of all the foundations that I have in my collection. This one right here is the Golden Medium from Wonder Beauty. This is the Nude Illusion. And as you can see just how much lighter it is, and they describe this as a golden medium. So remember, this one is described as a golden medium with neutral undertone type thing. So this one is kind of described as the same thing. You can see how much lighter it is. This one right here is the Lancome Ultra Wear in the shade 420 Bisque N. And this is a neutral shade. This is a golden shade. This one right here is from L'Oreal. This is the Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation. This one is in the shade 485. So you can see what 485 looks like next to the Natasha Denona. And then this shade right here is 480 from the L'Oreal. Typically, I mix these two shades together and get the right shade for me. All the foundations that I just showed you swatches of are some of my favorite foundations. It feels like it's a foundation that as you built it up, it kind of would get dark. It would kind of cling to dark spots. Kind of up in here, like sometimes my forehead will kind of look funky, especially through the camera, because you can see I have some divots in my head, and that is from an accident that I had, several years ago. So I noticed that this foundation kind of clings to those areas, maybe more so than some of my others in my collection. I would say the only complaint that I have about this foundation so far is that I do not like the way that it looks over my pores. I do feel like this exaggerates my pores some. Like, it almost emphasizes pores that I didn't really realize were an issue for me. So it's that kind of a foundation where you do have to kind of be careful with it over pores. And maybe this might be a foundation to wear with some sort of pore filling primer. This is claiming to be a full coverage foundation. Okay, let's just say this. So on a scale from 1 to 5, in the medium coverage category, let's just say 5 is the most extreme coverage in the medium category, okay? I would say this foundation is a 3. It's buildable to a 5, but I don't know that it's buildable to a full coverage. And this is not a foundation that likes to be built up in certain areas and not in other areas. And that is another thing I was struggling with throughout the entire time I've been testing this. I was maybe wondering if it was something I was doing wrong, or if the shade was so off from my natural skin tone from my fake tan wearing off, or I couldn't understand why it would be darker in spots and lighter in other spots. So that was kind of throwing me off too, which was another reason why I didn't know if I liked it or not. Because there are things that I really, really like about the foundation, and then there's a few things that I'm like, yeah, not so much. Because even though this foundation has kind of that long wearing, humidity, climate proof type feeling to it, if you need a full coverage, you're gonna have to do like 2 full layers and do it all over the face, just so that you don't have those dimensions within the face. Now, let me go ahead and pull you guys closer, and then I'll turn off the ring light so you guys can see what this looks like just in more natural lighting in front of the window. Okay, so as you can see, it looks pretty good around my forehead. This is with the ring light on first. As you can see, it looks really good around my forehead, and it does look pretty decent. Don't get me wrong, I was able to build this up pretty good. I would not call this like a full coverage, but I was able to build it up pretty good. But it is darker in certain areas, and I think once I turn the ring light off, you're really gonna see that. But right now I wanted to show you guys what it looks like with the ring light. let's turn off the ring light. And this does look really pretty on the skin. I like the finish of it. I do love the way it looks over my texture. I like the way it looks over my wrinkles. I don't love it over my pores. It's an easy fix by just applying, you know, some sort of a pore filling primer. But there are some things that are just absolutely beautiful about it, but there's also a few negatives. Okay, so that's it for this midday check-in. I will come back probably around 7 o'clock tonight and give you guys my full final thoughts on this foundation. So I will see you guys later on this evening. Okay, so I am back to give you guys my final thoughts on this foundation. It is currently just past 9 o'clock, so I've officially had this on for like 14 hours. So I think, well, I've almost had it on for 14 hours. It's been like 13 and a half. So let me get into all of my thoughts. I will pull you guys closer so you guys can see what this looks like. Don't get me wrong, I feel like I've maintained the coverage. It's wore off very naturally, and I mean, it doesn't look too bad for being this many hours later. I think the shade's just still a little bit off, but I think I was able to make it work. I like this foundation, and I liked it once I was able to make it match my skin better. I think that was the thing that was throwing me off, and I felt like I really couldn't give my best review on it because the shade was so off that it was hard for me to see things that I liked about it. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but when you are trying out a foundation for the first time and the shade's off, it just throws everything off. And so now that my skin is a little bit darker with the fake tan on, and I feel like the foundation matches so much better, now I've been able to really judge it based on the foundation and not the shade. So yes, I feel like the foundation shade range is a little bit wonky. I will say that. I've said it the entire video, and I'm going to say it one more time. Shade range is definitely different, and I recommend like really researching every shade within your range. You know, there's only 20 shades. There's not as many shades in this foundation as there are in some of her other foundations, but I recommend looking at every shade in your category before making your decision on the shade. Do I feel like that this is a foundation that's unique in any way? No. And like I said, this foundation reminds me of all the foundations that I've mentioned. If you have any of the foundations that I mentioned, you know, this one from L'Oreal, the Lancome one, the Becca one, the Skin Glow from Dior, the one from Guerlain, the Nude Illusion from Wonder Beauty. Any of these foundations, if you have them in your collection, you don't really need this foundation. But I don't feel like this foundation is unique enough to say, oh my gosh, you guys have got to try this. I don't really feel like it was unique in that sense. I feel like there's a lot of foundations like this out on the market. It's different than her Transform Matte and her Face Glow. So it was a nice addition to her foundation collection. If Natasha Denona is one of your favorite brands, I would definitely say you will probably like this foundation if you like any of the foundations that I've mentioned. I like Natasha Denona's brand, but Charlotte Tilbury is my favorite brand. So if she came out with a new foundation, even though it was like some of the other foundations I have in my collection, I would probably find myself reaching for that one over some of my others because I love Charlotte Tilbury's brand. It's my favorite right now. I was really impressed with the way that it applies. I will say it is mature skin friendly because it does lay over wrinkles very beautiful. Just like all the other foundations I've mentioned here, I do feel like this would be beautiful over in your wrinkles. I don't feel like it settles into the fine lines, and it doesn't get cakey, and it doesn't get built up. The only issue I have, and it could be the shade. That's why I don't know if it's the foundation's fault. It just could be the shade not being a match. But the only issue that I had was it kind of attaches to dark spots on my skin, and it kind of dramatizes it. So that's been my only issue as far as, you know, because hyperpigmentation is kind of like what we deal with when you have maturing skin, you know? So that would be the only thing that I would say that it's not mature skin friendly, but it also could be the shade. So I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna fully blame it on the foundation. On a scale from 1 to 5, I would probably give this maybe like a 3.5, maybe almost a 4, but not quite a 4. I still think it's in the 3. It's in the 3 range. 3.5 to a 4, but not quite a 4. It's not groundbreaking. I do think that this is a nice addition to all of her foundations that she has in her collections, but I'm going to continue to play around with it, you guys, and next week, I am actually going to be doing a update video where I'm going to be going through all the products that I've been reviewing the last 2 months, and I will give you guys an update on this, but I'm thinking about maybe getting a different shade and seeing if that helps me maybe like it more. I don't know. It says that it's long wearing, but I wouldn't call this like overly long wearing. So in my opinion, I get like this one right here, you guys, I can apply this and it looks almost the exact same 12 hours later. Like, this one is unbelievable. I mean, L'Oreal nailed it. I think I've only heard 2 or 3 people try this foundation and not like it out of hundreds. I mean, this is definitely a bomb foundation, especially in the drugstore category. It's super affordable. It has a lot of shades. Like, L'Oreal knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. This one, I would say, I start losing coverage, you know, 8 or 9 hours. I will say the Lancome Ultra Wear is longer wearing than this one, so I definitely maintain coverage more with this one than I do this one. But this one just attaches to those dark spots and I can't get past that. So let's go ahead and scoot you guys in so you guys can see how my skin is looking, you know, 13.5 hours later. Okay, so, I mean, you can see my hyperpigmentation, and I haven't even really touched my forehead today. So the foundation has naturally kind of worn off in those areas. But I don't like the way it's built up against my hairline, and I've had that issue the entire time I've worn this foundation. It kind of builds up in the hairline funky, but it does look pretty natural. I mean, I've lost a lot of my coverage right here, right in this area. Now, my plan was to get this video up tonight for you guys, but that didn't happen. Like, that's why I upload in the morning, because it's just too hard for me to upload it in the evening. Evening time is when my family comes home, and I had to go night driving with my daughter. Praise God I made it home. She's driving really good. I'm just being funny, but yeah, I cannot upload at night. It just doesn't work. All right, let's go ahead and turn the ring light off. Okay, so now I just have the 2 umbrella lights over in the corner, and again, it's late at night, so there is no sun coming through the window. But as you can see, it looks just very natural. I'm definitely shiny. So the other thing that I did not address in this review is this is definitely a glowy type foundation. So this gives the skin a natural glow. But it also is a foundation that gives you the natural glow but sets down. So that's why it reminds me of this one. As far as the glowing properties, it reminds me of this one. And the L'Oreal kind of gives the skin like a healthy, refreshing glow. But not wet. It's not like I'm dewy. I mean, it probably looks like I am, but I'm not. So as you can see, I mean, you know, you can see my textures really coming through right now. And I'm trying to get all this healed up, but that's adult acne for you. I mean, it's hormonal acne. It is what it is. So that's it for my review on this foundation. I am sorry for the delay. I appreciate you guys being patient with me while I reviewed this. And it was just a foundation that I really needed to wear an extra day, and it's just been that kind of a foundation. So thank you guys so much for your patience. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this foundation review. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys again for all the love that you guys show me and this channel. It truly means the world to me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day filled with love and happiness. I will see you guys right back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. and I love you all so much. Bye!